welcome to the 5 Percenters Club. I'm Nathan Ali Barber. I'm joined as ever by my co-host Daniela Genus.
Hey.
Every week we discuss an inspiring book that we're reading that advances us towards our goal of becoming a 5 Percenter. This week Daniela and I are reading The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. Duhigg examines why some people and companies struggle to change despite years of trying, while others seem to remake themselves overnight. He examines how and why habits work and exactly where they reside in our brains. The right habits are crucial for people like Michael Phelps and Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz and Martin Luther King. The key to exercising regularly, losing weight, raising exceptional children, and becoming more productive and building revolutionary companies is understanding how habits work. And that's what he explains in this wonderful book. Daniela, what did you think of the book?
It's fascinating. It's very interesting book, and so many different relevant stories that are relevant to things that we know of that I just never considered.
Yeah.
So one of the stories that I loved was Outkast song Hey Ya, which to this day annoys the life out of me.
Does it? You don't like it?
I think it's such an irritating
song. I love that song.
Irritating. But they said that the author said in the story that when the song was released, they were convinced it was going to be a hit. They'd done some scientific calculations and everything about the rhythm, the melody means it's going to be a hit. Yeah. But it bombed. So what they did is they realised that people like stuff that's familiar to them. So they sandwiched it on all radio airplay between two songs that people were very familiar with. And within a couple of weeks of doing that, it was number one everywhere.
Why was that so important? Why is familiarity so important when selling a new idea?
Because people don't like change.
Yeah.
Basically. So then the song Hey Ya sounded too different to anything they've ever heard. Yeah. So and he says, even songs that people don't particularly like, they'd rather listen to if they know it. Because of the familiarity of it.
Yeah, like Celine
Dion. Which is funny because in Jamaica, for example, Celine Dion, people love Celine Dion.
Yeah.
And he's saying in the book that Celine Dion, although she's a good singer, her songs are pretty much all sound exactly the same. And that's why people listen as opposed to changing the radio station, because it's familiar.
It's what you know.
They're used to listening to it.
It's what you know.
So that was quite interesting.
Yeah.
So in terms of habit, he's saying if you want to get a new habit to, I guess, sandwich it in between, for people to get a new habit, sandwich it in between something that people are familiar with, which is quite an interesting concept that I'd never...
Definitely. I thought the book was fantastic. From start to finish, fascinating. So many interesting things that I learned about just human psychology, the reason why we are, how we develop habits, how we can change habits. So the book is organized into three main parts, right? So the first part is the habits of individuals. So this discusses how habits work and how we change them. So basically it's about, stimulus, response. So what were the three parts? So there was cue, routine, reward. So there's something that happens in your life, like if it's to do with smoking, maybe it's to do with after you eat, you want to have a cigarette, right? So the routine, and then you're rewarded by the nicotine, right? So there's that three thing loop. So he said, in order to change a bad habit, you need to change the reward you give yourself. So you still have the cue, which is, I have just had a coffee or just had something to eat, and the routine could still be, I don't know, changing. I don't know, something in your mouth, and the reward could be a stimulation that you get, the sugar that you get from that.
Well, the example that he uses is
probably better to use the example that you use.
Yeah, you sound like you're struggling. Is Pepsodent toothpaste. Apparently, many years ago in America, only 7% of Americans brush their teeth. Yeah. And what this guy did is he ran a campaign focusing on...
brush teeth with toothpaste. Because they brush their teeth. I'm sure they used to brush their teeth.
No, they used to chew them things and spit.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Really?
I remember from the Western films.
Okay.
Manky teeth. Anyway, moving swiftly on.
Okay.
So he got people to focus on the cue, which is the film that you can feel on your teeth pretty much all the time. And actually they're saying that film is not dirt, it's just what's there anyway. But by focusing his marketing campaign on get rid of that nasty film feeling, that was the cue. So every time people felt that, they felt that they needed to brush their teeth, so then they would start to brush their teeth. It became a routine. The reward, now I have shiny, sparkly teeth. And then also the feeling of the tingling,
that tingling
in your mouth.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting because I thought it's true. Anytime I've used toothpaste where it's not burning my mouth.
Yeah. It hasn't worked. This is rubbish toothpaste.
Yeah, I used some 3 stripe thing the other day, and it just wasn't burning. It was like peppermint. Yeah. I'm like, what is this? And then I read, and then the foam thing as well. I read that he says that people associate your teeth being clean because they can feel the foam in their mouth.
Yeah.
But so actually, it must be clean. A fallacy.
It doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
You can remove the foam and it'll still do the same thing. Yeah.
So it's the cue, routine, reward. Yeah. And the habit loop is what he calls it.
Same thing with.
Go on.
I was going to say about Febreze.
Yes.
When Procter and Gamble, also Unilever, brought out Febreze, they thought it was going to be a hit because they tested it and it's like, it's this thing that kind of reduces any kind of stain, any kind of smells, gets rid of bad odors really, really easily. So they thought it was going to be a huge hit for like in people cleaning in their homes. And when they released it to the market, no one was interested. Like only a few people bought it, and they were like, "Well, what's the problem?" Because they marketed it initially to people whose house smelled. But those people didn't even realise that their house smelled. There was a woman that had like 50 odd cats or something like that, and her house stunk. Like when the researchers went into their house, they started to gag. So they were like, "Oh, this person definitely needs it, right?" But this person, she couldn't smell it.
But it's funny because the recent Febreze adverts, and this story that he uses is from many years ago, but in the recent Febreze adverts, they have that thing about going nose blind. Have you not seen it?
No, I haven't seen it.
And when I read it, I was thinking, it's saying nose blind, so it's got like a teenage boy and he's in his room and he's got loads of nasty stuff. You can tell it stinks, but he can't smell it because he's gone nose blind. And that's kind of what they're saying about that lady with the cat. Yeah. When you're in it, you don't necessarily smell it.
Yeah.
So they realised that wasn't working, so what they did is they created a new cue. Yeah. And the new cue, they realised that women, and it sounds so sexist, but that's
what it is.
Women cleaning their houses got a pleasure when they're finished and it was clean. Yeah. So what they did is they attached a cue. Your house isn't clean until you use Febreze. Because Febreze makes this wonderful smell.
Freshness.
And it's fresh. Yeah. And once they did that, the sales went through the roof because that cue stuck in people's head. Well, I've cleaned up, but it's not really clean
until
it doesn't smell like Febreze. Right. Yeah. So it's in terms of marketing, the habit process and the habit loop. Yes. Fascinating.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you're trying to sell something, it's about working out what are people's cues and how can you build a cue, or how can you identify a cue, that's going to lead people to start using your product or service, and where is the reward? Yeah. So it had me thinking. So I obviously offer enterprise support. I'm trying to work out, okay, what is the cue? People sitting thinking, I'm fed up of working hard, or I'm fed up of working out. Every time you get up and go to work, I have to get up and go to work, I'm fed up. Is that the cue? Do I then say, are you sitting at your desk?
That's the cue.
Upset that your boss won't let you go out to lunch? Well, get rid of your job today and start a business and come and I'll help you. Right. But I guess it's about refining that and working out the process. But I think it's an excellent book for business people as well, because I guess it's not necessarily written specifically from a business context, but I think
there are business elements. Yeah,
I think it applies quite well
to business and organizational change. He does make a lot of references to business and actually what businesses can do to incorporate what these things he calls keystone habits are. So basically, a keystone habit is a habit that if you change that one habit, everything else in your life will kind of change. It's almost like it creates like a ripple effect. Yeah. So he talks about, there's a story of this CEO that joins this Aloca company. So there's like this manufacturing company, huge. They do like aluminium and steel, like all over the world, global. And it was so funny that when they hired him as a CEO, he was addressing like the shareholders in this huge meeting, and they were asking him, so, what about the share price, and what are you going to do about the returns of the market and the stock price and all the rest of it? And he was like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to reduce injuries to 0. And they're like, all right, cool. So, but what about the financial returns? And and he's like, okay, our focus, our priority is to make sure that no one has any injuries in this company ever. And by the way, here are the fire exits. And make sure. And everyone was like, oh my God, he lost you. Like, go and sell your shares right now. People started selling their shares because they're like, this guy's lost his mind. Although what they didn't realize is that what he did is he changed a keystone habit within the whole organization by making safety his number one priority. He basically communicated to the whole of the organization, we care for you, and to have this maniacal focus on process and and health and looking after the employee had a ripple-on effect to everything else that the company did when dealing with shareholders, when dealing with employees, when dealing with stakeholders. Their share price went through the roof over the next few years that he was there.
Because they got to 0 injuries.
They
actually achieved
so you don't have to pay out on lawyers, you don't have to you know what I mean? Like, you can hire better, you can keep people. So it had this huge, massive ripple effect that people don't really understand.
Changing one habit within the organisation. Right. The habit was poor safety.
Yeah. By
getting everyone to focus on increasing that, then as you said, it created a ripple effect.
Right.
Throughout everything.
Yeah.
And I think, again, very important, and he talks about exercise being a keystone habit.
Yeah.
If you start to exercise, you then start to eat better.
Yeah.
You generally become happier. You excel in your career. So many different things, which again, I read it, I was like, I need to start exercising.
Get back on there's so many benefits. And he talks about this idea of like willpower, right? And how important it is to have willpower. But it's a finite resource, so you can only use so much of it. So there were lots of these experiments where scientists would like test, if you can be in a room and there would be like 2 plates, one of cookies and one of like beetroot or something like that. And they would say, okay, we're going to leave the room now, but you can't eat the cookies so you can't eat the cookies. You can have the beetroot. But obviously over that period of time, they had to exercise their willpower not to eat the cookies, but they could eat the beetroot. So obviously no one wants to eat the beetroot. When they came back in the room, and they gave these people like other kinds of verbal, like reasoning tests, because they extended their willpower not to eat the cookies, it was harder for them to do the reasoning tests, and they snapped more and they were more like angry and abrasive and give up. So like, it's so important about how to kind of use, that's why they said like in the morning, do the most important thing in the morning first, because your willpower, that's when you have most willpower early on in the day, as opposed to doing things later on at night where it's obviously harder to do. And